All right, so real quick, I want to go over these PRP seats. These are what I'm running in my razor. They do work with my bases. Another common seat that works with them are the Simpson. They used to be called Twisted Stitch Simpson bottom out. But they do work with the bases. You do not have to use the sliders. They're still optional. Whenever you buy PRPs and Simpsons, they end up coming with these little 1-inch pieces of tube. Now what these pieces of tube do is it simulates the stock seat frame, as you can see right here. And that way you can use the slider still. So, like on a stock seat, if you don't want to use the slider, then all you're going to do is lower your seat base or your seat down the thickness of this slider plate, which is right about a 1/16 of an inch. It's right about 16 gauge or so. It might even be 18 gauge. So you're not really doing much as far as lowering your seat down any further. You will get rid of the play and those little spacers, so your seat's going to be more solid mounted, like this one right here, because it's solid now. But you're not really going to lower it anymore on a stock seat. Now on these aftermarket seats like this, if you decide not to use the sliders, well, here's one with, or it would have the slider on there because you have to use this piece. The one without the slider is going to be lower because this is raising it up 1 inch so that you can use that slider plate. Whenever you don't use the slider plate, you don't have to use these 1-inch pieces anymore, and you just bolt it directly to the bottom of the seat. So you do lose some adjustment whenever you do that though, and the reason why is because the slots in this seat base, in my seat base, same thing with a stock seat base, these slots are set up for the bolt offset or the distance between them that is the stock seat frame, which is like these right here. So you can see normally this top and lower hole right there would be bolted to your seat cushion, and then this right here would be what bolts to your seat base, these two. And you can see these two holes in relation to the two slots that's where the location of those slots come from. So whenever you switch, you delete these and you're going to solid mount it to the base. Well, these slots were set up for the other configuration, so as you can see the distance is further apart. So now I've only got like another 1/4 inch that this seat could go forward, and then going backwards it's got, you know, 1.5 inches or so that I can go backwards. Well, actually, I guess if you move that, that's the seat going forward, and then this, if I move it down to there, that's the seat going backwards. So you lose the amount of adjustment you have if you do get rid of those pieces and solid mounting. And that's the exact same if you were going to not use the slider on your stock seat base with your stock seat, you'd still only have the same adjustment. But on aftermarket seats, it's a difference of lowering it down by 1 inch. Now, some aftermarket seats you cannot do that to. You have to have that piece in there because of this latch. Now, as you can see, it's right up against the bottom of the seat base on PRPs. It was the same thing on the Simpsons I used to have. It's like right up against there. So some seats, this is too low down, and you won't be able to do that. You won't be able to solid mount it. You have to run these spacers in there that allow use of the slider. So, which doesn't mean that you even have to use the slider still. You could still solid mount it. All you'd have to do is take off the little spacers, and then it wouldn't be able to slide. It would just be solid mounted with a 1-inch spacer in there. Just wanted to point that out. Now, something you can do, this is optional, is you can actually take either a file or a flap disc, belt grinder, whatever you have access to, and you can shave these spacers down just a real small amount. And you have to be careful. The spacer has to be thicker it has to remain thicker than the thickness of the seat base. If you accidentally take too much off of the spacer, your seat base is no longer going to slide. So it's optional, but if you want to, you can cut the height down just a little bit. And what that does is after you get the seat base installed on there and your bolts tightened down, the movement between your seat base on the seat frame, it reduces it. Because anytime you're going to have the slider, that's how the slider works, is that your bolts tighten down on the spacer and the seat base literally just floats around the spacer. Okay. It has to be able to float around there so that it can move forward and back. So it's an option. You don't have to. If you're worried about screwing it up, taking too much off, then do not do it. Alright, so I've got the lowering seat bases installed on my PRP seats, and I threw them in there. Now this driver's seat, I do not have the slider on it. It's directly bolted to the seat base. You can see it's far more firm in there mounting wise. And I run one with and one without, just so that anytime I see guys in the trail, I can show them, you know, you don't have to use the slider if you don't want. That's totally up to you. But that way I can show people real fast the different options and stuff you have. So here, the passenger one has the lowering base and the slider on it. And you can see there's the play in it. Now, like I said, I can get rid of some of that play by shaving down those little spacers a little bit that go inside the slots. But it's not in the seat base. I mean, I've already looked at the seat base and everything like that, and that's not what the play comes from. It comes from those little spacers. So I'll probably end up taking the base off and just shaving those spacers down just a little bit. It'll reduce the amount that's able to move around. This one, without the slider, I don't have to run those 1-inch square tube. You can see it's about 3/4 of an inch to an inch lower than the other seat over here. So remember, stock seats, whether you use a slider or not, you're hardly going to change how much it drops. You know, the thickness of that metal, like 16 or 18 gauge, whatever it is. But aftermarket seats like this, it does change how much you can drop the seat down by about that 3/4 of an inch to an inch. All right, real quick, some guys have issues with these aftermarket seats and this 1-inch piece of square tubing whenever they go to insert the last 4 bolts with the little spacer in there. Like one of these bolt holes would be lined up, and then on the other side it would be like off some, so that whenever like you could get the bolt started, but the spacer wouldn't actually fit down in the slot. Now, it's not an issue with the distance between these slots. Okay, this distance is the same as a stock seat base. The reason why is because these the square tube that they give you, the holes are a little bigger around than they need to be, and that's just for tolerances and stuff like that between these seat frames being welded on there and such. So that way you can adjust them a little bit to get stuff to fit. So not a big issue. All you got to do, if you accidentally or you did tighten down these 4 Torx bolts, just put the seat, as you can see here, there we go. Put the seat so that you can see both of them through the slot. Use a Torx screwdriver and stick it through. Loosen up all 4 of those bolts so that you have a little bit of play in here. And after that, you can insert these 4 in there and torque these 4 down through here into the square tube, and after that go back with your Torx screwdriver and tighten those other 4 down, and then you'll be just fine. Alright, I'm just showing you real fast what happens whenever you mess up and put the entire latch on the bottom of the seat base. So we still got the bumpers in there like they're supposed to. The only thing we messed up is put the latch piece all on the bottom of the seat base right now. and I'll show you what that does. So this is the incorrect way. Do not do this. It's not going to be correct. So you can put it down in here and it'll latch. So I mean, it's latched right now, but as you can see, there is up and down play in it. If you look at the angle of this thing, it's not even, it's hardly angled. It's not the 6 degrees like it's supposed to. Like it's supposed to be. And then the bumpers down here, I can fit my whole hand underneath the bumpers because they're not resting on the steel. So right now, if you were to have the seat on here, your weight would be all down on this plastic piece, and that's not right. It's to get it sturdy and the lowering effect and everything like that, you have to have that other latch piece up on top. I mean, you got the play. It's 3/16 steel, but still I can flex this thing a fair amount right now. So you can imagine if you're sitting on there in the seat with all this leverage up high moving around and your body weight, this thing's going to be all over the place. So, all right, the next little troubleshooting issue I wanted to show you was if you incorrectly put the entire latch system on the bottom of the seat base, but you also don't have those 2 front rubber isolators or bumpers in the seat base, and how much a difference that makes. So here you can see, put the front in there, put the back down on there. So now we got, not only do we have that horrible play back there, look at this front. Seat base is all over the place. That's how much of a difference putting this thing together makes in the quality of how it fits. So next thing I'll do, I'll fix the latch, but I'll leave just the bumpers off of it, and you can see what the difference is then. So now I'm going to show you, we have the latch correctly installed. As you can see, the 6 bumpers are not in the seat base. I'll show you what sort of difference that makes on how this seat base fits. Now, reminder, if you just ate your spinach, don't be torquing these down. You'll break your plastic or whatever on your latch. So anyways, so no bumpers in there, front or rear. It's got play. So I was saying you have to install those 6 bumpers. And if you got really worn out ones, you'll start to get play in here. So, you know, little isolators like that are a wear item. So if yours are, you know, you got a 2014 machine or something like that and they're flat as a pancake, then get you some new ones. They don't cost that much to replace. That's how much of a difference those isolators make.